Super. Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much for being here tonight. I know that this is also going to be recorded, which will be beneficial for others in the future. My name is Courtney Graffius, and I am the acting IT director and have previously was the tech integration coordinator for the district. According to research from Common Sense Education, to create a positive culture around media and technology, there needs to be a whole community approach by including a strong family education component. Portland Public Schools is a common sense recognized district, meaning we teach digital citizenship curriculum, provide professional learning opportunities for staff, and provide outreach to families, including this parent university tonight. I worked with our school librarians to bring common sense media curriculum to the elementary schools. Tonight, one of our panelists is Meg Schott. Meg is Talbot's librarian, and she is representing our elementary librarians tonight. I have a brief write-up from Meg to share how digital citizenship is taught in Portland's elementary schools. In addition to promoting reading and literacy and teaching research skills, librarians in Portland teach STEM, coding, and digital literacy to pre-K through 5th grade students. Meg follows the Common Sense Media curriculum, as do our other elementary librarians. Here are some examples of the lessons. 3rd graders had a thought about how they want to present themselves to others, both online and in person, with the Common Sense Media lesson. This is me. In the lesson, they talked about the importance of being positive, and they drew selfies that expressed who they are. That's just one small example of a lesson that is taught throughout the school year in 3rd grade, as well as in the other grades in the elementary schools. I'm going to turn it over now to Jonathan Warner, and he is going to kick off the presentation.
I'm pausing for a moment to let any translation take place, and then I'll start. I'm Jonathan Warner, and I coordinate professional development for MLTI, the Maine Learning Technology Initiative. I'm joined this evening by Ashley Carroll, a technology integrator for the Brunswick School Department, who is currently serving as an ambassador for the MLTI program. Tonight's workshop is brought to you by the Learning Through Technology team at Maine's Department of Education and by MLTI. The resources we are using were created by Common Sense Media and Common Sense Education, which are parts of Common Sense, an independent, nonprofit organization dedicated to helping families navigate the world of media and technology with their kids. Ashley and I will take turns presenting sections of this session, and we'll comment and answer questions for the other presenter in the chat. Please feel free to ask anything you'd like there, and if you have a pencil and paper handy, that may be helpful for one part of our conversation later on. To those of you translating, please don't hesitate to ask us to pause if we've moved too quickly.
And Jonathan, I'm just going to unmute to say that I saw in the chat that there is no translation, so we can proceed unless we learn that somebody has joined and will be needing translation.
Great. And someone will let me know that?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. So, what we focus on this evening, 2 areas. The first is finding balance with media and tech use at home. And the second is how to make meaningful family connections using media and tech. So if we look at this first question, technology is here to stay. We know our kids are growing up in a world that we could never have imagined ourselves, and that their world will grow and change at quicker and quicker paces as they continue to age and experience technology. This means we need to prepare kids for a world that is already and always changing. So for the first part of that, finding balance with media and tech use at home, in this workshop we'll reflect on the activities your children engage in every week and how much media and technology they consume. We'll talk about how we might replace media or tech time, when possible, with other learning activities. And then we'll talk about how we can use media and technology to enhance activities that promote learning and development. In the second half, we'll talk about how to make meaningful family connections using media and tech. So we'll think about the different types of media: passive, interactive, and creative. We'll talk about ways to create a positive and educational co-viewing and co-playing experience with our children. And we'll look at strategies to use with kids when using media to help bond, draw connections, share ideas, and express their feelings. I think you'll also find that we interweave those two topics as we go, so you'll see some of each in different portions of the presentation.
So we're going to start by examining what is media, because we hear the term media and we often think only social media like Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, but it's much more than that. It also includes books and magazines. It includes news and television shows, movies we watch at home. Anything that you're consuming that has been created for enjoyment is typically media. So with all of this media in our world, we can think of a lot of benefits and challenges that face not only us, but also our kids. So I'm going to pause for about 20 seconds, and I want people to think of one benefit of media and technology and one challenge that we're facing with media and technology. There's much more than one benefit or one challenge, but hopefully one of the ones that you just imagined is showing up on our list. I'm not going to read every single one to you, but I want to highlight some benefits that have come out of our changing technology and media landscape. We have the option to communicate with loved ones, both near and far, at a much easier rate than we ever have before. And we have the ability to learn anything that we have a question about online. For example, I had a clogged sink the other night, and I was able to go on YouTube to learn how to unclog it myself because the plumbers were already done working. Some of the challenges that media and technology bring, though, can be quite scary, especially as we think about raising our children in this world. We know that there's the issue of how much use is too much use. We know there's the issue of what are they accessing at what age level. And we know that online bullying is something that is happening to students all over. So even though we have challenges, we need to remember we also have benefits that technology and media are bringing us. With that in mind, a lot of us worry about screen time. It's something that has been a discussion among doctors and pediatricians for many years now. We want to let you know that not all screen time is created equal. There's really 3 different categories of screen time that we're going to review in just a second, and each have their purpose and their place in your world. The first one is passive screen time. This is when you are doing that mindless watching, you're scrolling through videos, you're just consuming the media. It's just coming at you and it requires nothing from you other than your attention. The next step up is interactive. Interactive is talking about co-viewing or co-doing something. So it might be I'm playing a game, which requires input from me for something to happen. Or it might be I'm sitting and I'm watching a video with my child, and we're talking about what's happening as the video is going on. The last type is creative, and this is one of the most encouraged types of media and technology use. This is where our kids and us are creating or designing or making something with the technology and the media that's available to them. So this could be, for example, when our kids are playing Minecraft together and they're building a world with a whole story. Obviously, we look at that and we say, how much is too much time in there? But it's a good use of that technology time because they're really getting a chance to design and develop on their own. It could be creating funny movies together to send to family members far away, or it could be writing stories and talking about them with someone far off. All of these different ones will show up in your life. We want to encourage our students as much as possible to move away from passive and into that interactive and creative. And we can do that by modeling ourselves as parents. So when we're thinking about screen time, we actually need to change it to quality time. So we're thinking about quality media and quality time interacting with that media. So worrying less about the exact number of minutes and more about what are kids doing as they interact with this media. What are they building? What skills are they trying out? What are they getting to do as they're interacting with the technology? When I am creating in my Minecraft world, I'm learning about making mistakes and having things fail and how to fix them and persevere. When I'm only watching videos, I'm taking some stuff in, but I'm not really learning or honing my skills as much, which is why the passive media is not really what we want our kids to be doing all the time. To help you make these decisions, because it's very hard to know what is quality media when there's so much in the world, we want to refer you back to Common Sense Media. CommonSenseMedia.org has a whole parent side just for resources available to families. It has reviews about movies, books, games, the latest apps that we might hear our kids talk about and have no idea what they are. It has tips and frequently asked questions from parents just like you about these difficult topics and about the things they want to learn about to be able to interact with their kids as well. So if you're wondering if a game or if a book is appropriate, this is a great spot to go and to get a little information about it and give an overview of what it is about and what age levels Common Sense really recommends students to engage with. We have a quick video about how to make those connections as you're moving from passive to that interactive and that creative. I'm just going to double check that I shared my sound before I hit play on this.
Hi, I'm Arcelia Gonzalez for Common Sense Media. Research shows that co-using media and technology with your children has a range of positive effects. Not only can it support early literacy skills and boost empathy, it can even help kids develop essential life skills like focus, remembering information, and critical thinking. Check out this video for a deeper look at why watching and playing together with your kids is important for you and your family.
Here are 5 reasons to consider co-using media and tech with your kids. Number 1, it stimulates curiosity and helps develop vocabulary. Pick a high-quality show or movie and ask open-ended questions about what you're watching. For example, what colors do you see? If kids are older, pause the program and ask what they think might happen next. Making connections with the real world is especially important for their development. Number 2, it supports the development of social-emotional skills. For young kids, identifying and describing emotions can be really hard. Try using books, apps, and shows to help with this. Ask them what they think the characters are feeling and how a story made them feel. Helping them understand the perspectives of different characters can promote flexibility and empathy. Number 3, co-viewing strengthens emotional bonds. When you spend time watching a show or reading with your kids, you're doing something they like. You're close to them and giving them your full attention, which is great for everyone. Encourage other family members to do the same. Number 4, it can help teach positive values. Think about using the stories you're enjoying together to reinforce your family's view of the world. Point out stereotypes and talk about why representation in media is important. Also consider playing games where you work together for a common goal. And number 5, it's safer. By watching shows and movies or playing games with your child, you can remove some of the risks associated with screen time. Co-viewing lets you monitor and detect any issue quickly and intervene as needed. For more tips on managing media with young kids, visit commonsensemedia.org.
Those are just some examples of how co-viewing can be a very simple thing that we do to move passive screen time into that interactive spot, and then hopefully even further. So we're going to talk about one of Common Sense Media's tools, and this tool is called Meal, and we'll talk about what the different letters mean in just a second. But it's a way for us to look at the different parts of technology in our life, just like we look at the different parts of food in our life to make sure that we're eating things that make our body healthy. So we all know how we need fruits and vegetables and protein to make ourselves healthy humans who are able to do everything they want to. And just like we examine the food we eat, there's different ways we can think about how we're using technology to make our bodies healthy as well. So we're going to be looking at all of these different things, and we're going to be thinking about how they fit on a technology plate. So the first part of meals is M for model. It's talking about setting a good example and how our kids are learning from our actions. So the best way to set a good technology example is for us to demonstrate it ourselves to our kids. This could be removing my phone at dinner time and putting it in another room so my family knows they have my full attention and that people are more important than devices. It could be when something doesn't go right technology-wise, talking about how you solve the problem and how we don't just jump to being mad about it, and when there are things we can do to solve it ourselves and empower ourselves. Setting that good example is something that we can do anytime we're interacting with a device. Talking about pausing a movie to be able to listen to a question when your child comes up to you. Or it could be talking about what you do with technology. How if you're in the store and you're on your phone, it might be because you're looking up to see if the price is a good deal or if you should get it somewhere else. These little things that we interject in our day will make a big difference on how the kids see technology in our lives. And know that no one is ever a perfect model. Sometimes you will use technology in a way you did not mean to demonstrate, and it's okay to own and model that too. The next part is engage. Have conversations about the content that you're watching. Like our video showed us, pause it and ask questions. The questions can be very simple ones like, what do you think is happening next? Or why do you think the character did that? All these questions start conversations and can tie back into our own lives in a powerful way for kids to build these connections and understanding and empathy. It's also a great way to engage with students if they have been doing passive media. So if your child has been watching something and you were unable to sit down and watch it with them, have a conversation after. Ask what they watched and what they saw and how they felt about it. The next part of meals is A for adjust. Not all screen time is the same like we talked about before. So we want to make sure we're adjusting our screen time into the different areas that we find are important. We want to make sure that we're using it for creative time and for that interactive time. There will be passive moments, of course, but we want to think about when they are the most effective and when we should not be passive and instead move on to something else. A great moment for passive time that I've had a lot of young parents talk to me about is a few moments just to get dinner ready. Yes, absolutely a great time for passive media if you don't want the child in the kitchen with you. And then dinner is a great time to go back to that engage and ask questions about the video they watched as you made dinner. So these things can layer on top of each other for us to make the best technology meal for our family. L is the next one for limit. Set healthy rules and expectations for your home. We want to acknowledge that every single home is different, and so your limits are not going to look like any other family. My previous example shared with me is something a lot of my friends have going on, but it might not work for you. Maybe you prefer to have your kids cooking in the kitchen with you, and so that's not a passive screen time. Make sure as you set these limits, you talk about why they're in place with your child. It's another part of that modeling for good technology behavior. And this way, they know the expectations and they know why they're in place. Like one limit might be no technology right before bed, and talk about how technology before bed wakes up our brain instead of puts us to sleep. And that's why this is a limit for our family. And the last part of meals is support. Support each other, both inside and outside your family. There will be times where all of your perfect planning go out the window just due to how life goes. And that's okay. Some days we might end up with more passive screen time than we wanted. Or maybe we were planning an outside day and the weather got in the way. Life happens, and make sure that you support your family and yourself through these times and choices. Know that everyone is struggling with technology and the time to use it and all of the different challenges that go around technology, and talk to the people in your lives about this. You are not the only family who might be having these questions. And if you talk to people around you, you'll get a whole bunch of different resources and ideas on how to tackle this. So we really want to remind you that support is one of the biggest things we can do, both from your school, from your family, and from your friends. It's okay to make mistakes as we go through this journey together, and just make sure that we acknowledge and keep going. So altogether, that is meal. And we will be making sure you have a printout of this so you could put it on your fridge and remind you about the different parts of this, about when we need to model, how to engage, how to set limits, and adjust and support as needed.
So, using that acronym and that idea of the tech meal, the question is, how do we go about creating an ideal tech meal that will be, as Ashley said, the best we can do in that moment, not, excuse me, not looking for every time we use tech, every time we engage with media to be perfect, but how do we get closer to that each time, and how do we make that determination? So as we think about this, I had suggested that if you have the ability to grab a pencil and paper, something like this wheel, this pizza-looking concept, may help you think about how to put together the pieces that would create an ideal tech meal. So we have some suggestions for you to think about. The various activities you're thinking about include ones that have interactions with tech and others that don't. So as you imagine this combination of an ideal meal, it's not simply comprised of tech use or of interactions with media, but many other things as well, some of which Ashley's mentioned. So I'll take a look with you at what's here. There's the suggestion that you think about the amount of time kids are playing with others, how much time they're spending with outdoor play, time spent on imaginative play and imaginative activities, thinking about screen time for entertainment, thinking about game nights, thinking about time spent on chores, thinking about video games, time spent cooking together, time spent in physical activity, only TV time, that co-viewing that Ashley mentioned, time for online learning, time for video chats with relatives, time for play, and finally, time for reading. So what we'd love for you to do is pause our recording here and think for a little bit about how you would put those pieces together so that you end up with what feels like an ideal meal for a typical night. And clearly any given day is going to have different components based on your schedule and what else is happening. But if you have for yourself an ideal meal, or maybe a few ideal meals, and you post those somewhere in your house, you share those, that can be a really helpful way to start these conversations. As you're thinking about that, you might consider which activities you use for media and tech that support or enhance the experience you're having, and which activities do you prefer that your child do without tech screens. So once you've put your plate together, taking note of which ones are tech involved and which ones are tech free can be a really helpful way to examine this. So we'll pause there for a moment, give you a minute to think about that, and then continue. When you think about how this would be comprised, as I mentioned, you might have different meals for different days, but your goal is to really figure out how tech does and does not fit in, and which activities are enhanced by tech, which may be made less engaging or less connecting using tech, and then thinking about how those balance over the course of a week. Maybe that might be a good way to frame it out so that you have some models for yourself and some ways that you and your family can look at, hey, we agreed we would try this out. I'm noticing that we're sliding away from what we intended. Having those out really as a opportunity for discussion, the plates themselves can be really helpful. And talking about what different plates might look like on different days with your kids, co-creating those plates can be really valuable as well. Courtney mentioned earlier that the lessons that are set up for your students at school have a number of different focuses. So I just thought I would share some of the other ones she mentioned. There's something called the CASTLE framework, which is a way to think about social emotional learning for kids. And I just thought I'd share this chart, which provides you a sense of where some of those issues might be addressed at various grade levels, and looking at how tech fits into these various categories. I wanted to also give you a couple of specific examples. So on the next slide, there's one that looks at self-awareness in grades K through 2, talking about how kids feel when they use technology. And then one for grades 3 through 5, which looks at their responsibilities online. And then there's also some really great lessons in a second category, self-management, talking about how students in grade K through 2 can say goodbye to technology when they need to. And then working very nicely with tonight's theme, this idea of finding a media balance for grades 3 through 5. So just some other examples of the kinds of lessons that are available. Portland has a specific series of ones that are in its scope and sequence that your students are engaging with, but we hope that those will give you some other ideas about the kinds of conversations that are happening and the focus of some of those discussions. So we'd like to take a look for a few minutes at how we make technology work for us. And I think so often the conversation right now is about all the ways tech is working against us. And I think that's a critical piece of this conversation. But I think it also is possible to flip that focus to think more about how tech can support our best selves and how it can help us magnify and enhance what we're doing. Ashley mentioned some of those, but to get started, I want to look at a definition of digital well-being and the idea that When we're experiencing media and technology, it happens in ways that are supporting our mental, physical, social, and emotional health. And I think what's pretty clear in the current conversations with students and with parents is that digital well-being is not often the focus. It's often about the ways in which technology is impeding or getting in the way of your mental, physical, social, and emotional health. And that is certainly an enormous concern and one I share as a parent, but it's something that I think is helpful to frame in the context of decisions you can make to help it be more supportive, and the places where it can be used for one's own mental, physical, social, and emotional health, and how limiting it can be helpful in supporting those as well. A really fantastic conversation to have with your kids, and one they're having at school as well, is thinking about how tech is designed to hold our attention and how that design can impact our well-being. So if we understand digital well-being as being an opportunity that technology can provide, pairing that with a conversation about the ways in which it can be problematic and challenging can also be really helpful. And one wonderful way to have that conversation is by saying, let's look at how tech is designed to hold our attention, and how is that impacting how we feel about ourselves and our relationship with the technology we're using. To do that, there's two terms that I think would be particularly helpful for you to have in your conversations with your kids, and to have them be able to understand as frames for the discussion. And I think you can introduce these or versions of them at a very young age to help them understand what impact the design of the tech is having on their experience. The first of those is addictive design. These are features or aspects of a device or an app that are intended to hook the user into frequent use. And an example I frequently give of this is looking with your kids at whether or not the clock on their mobile device is visible while they're using that particular app. So does it hide the clock, or does it keep it visible to them? If it hides it, it is an addictive design element. It's someone deciding that you shouldn't be looking at the clock, and talking to your kids about, why is that? Why do they want us to lose track of time? Another feature that is a design aspect of many apps and many technology interactions is creating a feedback loop. That's a response to something you do or post online that causes your brain to experience a temporary moment of pleasure. So what is it that is happening in the app that gives you a positive feeling? One example is being favorited or being thumbs up by any kind of version of that in a social media app, or getting positive feedback in a chat.
Second half, second end. Welcome, get started with your account. Back to webinar. No problem. Sign in.
I am just going to interrupt for a second, and if you are not presenting and if you're not on mute, please leave.
So this idea of the feedback loop looks at anything that is created to give you that sense that what you did is getting other people happy, or is making you have the sense of euphoria or excitement. The term is often called an endorphin release, and the idea of your brain being flooded with positive chemicals that make you feel great about something you did. That's a design element of a number number of apps and programs and something to talk to your kids about. How does this make you feel? Why is it happening? And what is the impact on how much you want to use the app or the tool when it's giving you that positive feedback?
I'm just going to unmute again to ask if you are not muted and you are not presenting to please mute yourself.
And just a reminder that if you need an interpretation, you can select that using the globe button.
Great way to pair that conversation about the digital design negative aspects, like the addictive design or creating feedback loops, is to talk to your kids about humane design. And this is features or aspects of a device or an app that prioritize what's good for people's lives. So for example, does an app allow you to keep seeing the clock? So it helps you keep track of time. Is the app set up to help you remember to limit the time that you're on it? Does it give you a reminder? Are there ways in which it is designed to help you make better choices, like to exercise or to do something that is positive for your well-being? If that can be a piece of what's happening, that's a humane design element, and helping your kids notice those where they're present and where the addictive ones are absent can be a really wonderful discussion and help you co-decide which things belong in your tech meal. Courtney, would you like me to talk about this, or would you prefer to?
That would be great if you would. Thank you.
Sure. So earlier this year, you had the opportunity to work with my friend Erica Marcus. She offered a different parent university, and she's written a wonderful book called Attention Hijacked, which was also a piece, I believe the title of her presentation in October. It's on the Parent University website if you'd like to go back and take a look at it and learn more about it. But you may have heard about how the emotional or nervous system regulation is a big piece of what we want to focus on when we think about our kids' social emotional well-being. For any people to be able to respond to everyday stresses they have in a calm and clear way, they need their nervous systems to be regulated. And way too much screen time or media for students can really hinder their ability to do that kind of regulation. And what ends up happening is something called dysregulation, meaning they're not able to regulate themselves, and it puts people outside of the ability to tolerate other issues that come up. So if they're too intensely stimulated, as you see in this diagram, within the blue line, this concept of sort of the soft up and down, that's what we refer to as the optimal zone, where you're able to feel more capable of dealing with everyday stressors. But if technology is moving you into that red zone outside, you find yourself really unable to handle it. And then as you'll notice on the right, very typically the response is fight, flight, or freeze. And so you see a kid who has become dysregulated, whose attention has been hijacked by technology as a result of some of these addictive design features, or their inability to set limits or be helped to set limits. And now suddenly we see all kinds of other issues emerging that have nothing to do with the technology itself, but which are, they're no longer able to access the regulatory ability they have because they've been set off the path by their interactions with tech. So, as a great example of this, helping kids come away from technology well before bedtime so that they begin to have a regulated experience entirely on their own, tech-free, and then heading to sleep having been inside that blue wave of window instead of really either hyper-stimulated by what they were interacting with or because they've become so upset about disengaging with the technology that that's dominating their bedtime. I often joke with my older students that I work with that there are also plugs somewhere other than next to their bed. And I say, think about where else you could charge your device so that you're disconnecting from it earlier on. And then moving forward, you're not going to sleep with it next to you where it's always accessible to you. And that physical distance helps you re-regulate and sort of re-find what you're normally capable of tolerating. I think one of the other things I talk to students about that is often really helpful for them to take home is asking everyone in the family to follow the same rules. And if everyone is charging their devices away from their beds, it's a lot easier to follow that rule than if only the kids need to do that. So something to consider as you're thinking about this with your kids, how might you all come up with a series of rules that can be helpful? We'll include in the links in the video version of this, the recorded version, something called the Family Media Tech Plan, where there are really fantastic questions to raise with your kids and with each other about how you're going to interact with technology. We're going to take a minute here to watch a video provided by Common Sense Education. It is a wonderful series that they co-created with KQED. And in this particular one, you'll see how the video explores design tricks. That is, the ways that the features that I was mentioning, those addictive pieces, are created to make it so exciting or so enticing to remain watching or interacting with the device. It also deals a little bit with why data is so valuable to tech companies, that's your personal data, and how does that affect us when those two things are combined.
Are you ready, Miles? Miles!
My bad, y'all. Joking about being addicted to our phones is as common as breathing. We've all been on our phones, scrolling infinitely, waiting for a notification, or refreshing the page hoping to see something funny. When I started using YouTube, dang, I sound old. When the video ended, it just ended. There wasn't any autoplay, and when you got to the bottom of your Twitter or your Instagram feed, you had to click the next page or there was something telling you that it was the end. Now apps use design tricks, which are basically ways tech companies grab our attentions through design features. You can scroll for as long as your thumb will allow, videos will autoplay and jump right into the next video without you having to do a thing. But it's not by accident, it's by design. Yep, that's right. Our favorite apps are designed to keep us on them as long as possible. It's how they make their money. So today we're asking, what are the design tricks tech companies are using to keep us hooked? So how did we get here? A lot of it starts with this dude, BJ Fogg. He founded the Behavior Design Lab at Stanford University in 1998. As a graduate student at Stanford, Fogg ran the first ever series of experiments to discover how computers could change people's attitudes and behaviors. He was inspired by this dude, B.F. Skinner. Basically, Skinner did a famous experiment where he put a rat in a box with a lever that gave the rat a snack when pulled. But the rat didn't get a snack every time it pressed the lever. This is called intermittent reinforcement. And as a result, the rat pulled the lever more often, like a gambler pulling a slot machine. This is exactly what's happening when you're clicking through TikToks or watching Reels. You keep going because you don't know when you'll see something good or rewarding. A few boring or irrelevant videos and posts, then you see something you like, then you repeat. The idea behind Fogg's work is that computers can be designed such that they influence the behavior of the people who use them. Basically, if computers can make our lives easier, here's a funny video, human, then we'll spend more time with them. I'm never letting you out of my sight. I love you so much. And it wasn't just Fogg though. This was the late 90s going into the early 2000s. Dot-coms were all the rage. Computers were becoming a part of folks' everyday lives. Silicon Valley and Fogg were discovering these powerful tools to predict human behavior at the same time. One discovery Google figured out was that if they analyzed search history, they could help with spelling errors in searches. So that's why "did you mean" would pop up when you misspell restaurant. This was helpful for the users, but they also realized spelling errors weren't the only thing that they could predict. They continued to explore this data and realized it had surprising power to predict things about us. Those predictions turned out to be very interesting to people selling things, products, ideas, political candidates, and campaigns. So companies started selling those predictions. They realized the more data they had, the better the predictions were.
Whether an 18-year-old to a 60-year-old, these big tech companies and companies in general want to ensure that you are scrolling and using their device for as long as possible.
That's Emma Lemke, who started designing for us while still in high school as a multimedia coalition for young folks to share how online spaces should be designed safely and intentionally with young folks in mind.
Because what that ensures is you are scrolling for longer, you're engaging for longer, you are able to generate for them more profit, and thus they want to maximize your attention at all costs, even at the cost of your own well-being, safety, privacy, security.
And let's face it, folks spend a lot of time on online spaces. It would be a waste of my time to tell you to get off that dang phone. Plus, I'd be a hypocrite. Like, I spend an average of 7 hours a day on my phone, or so Apple says I do. That's 49 hours a week, or 196 hours a month. Basically, I'm spending 96 days a year on my phone. That's like 3 months. And that's very sad and draining to say out loud. Maybe I could have taken up wood shop and finally made that table and chairs I've always dreamt of. Or, knowing me, I actually probably would have just found another way to procrastinate. But the point is, we spend a lot of time on our phones, and there has to be an acknowledgement of how that's affecting us.
And what those addictive features can do to you can have long-term impacts. It can result in a worsening of one's mental state. It lead to increased rates of anxiety and depression from scrolling and not being able to unplug. That can bombard young people with feelings of hopelessness. You can feel FOMO, which pulls you even more into addictive apps and to platforms that keep you scrolling even if you're not happy.
The things we're seeing online can heavily influence our thoughts and ideas about ourselves and the way we see the world around us. But not everybody on all platforms are being affected in the same way. Facebook did a whole report acknowledging how their apps were negatively affecting some young girls' images of themselves. It's pretty complex, and certain groups can be more vulnerable than others to the negative impacts of social media. The creators of many addicting features were well-intentioned. The idea started as a way to enhance user experience and make it more engaging. But now all of that operates within an economy that gathers data from users and needs them on a given platform for as long as possible, interacting as much as possible to provide more data. A vicious cycle that none of us are immune to. But I have seen folks try to control the devices and not the other way around. Articles about teens going back to flip phones or adapting the uses of an app so that it doesn't have this constant feeling of extraction. Heck, the creator of Infinite Scroll even has second thoughts. So, if we have folks acknowledging that maybe we need to do something about the beast that is addictive apps, what are we gonna do about it?
Most of the people who are in office right now are of another generation, of a much older generation. And it's not their fault that they don't understand the complexities and the importance of regulating online platforms. But what that means is that those lawmakers need to begin to listen to young people as a way to inform their decisions and as a way to move forward quickly and decisively to create substantive legislative action that will, like I said, by design, really attack these business models and these operations of companies.
But the big question is, what laws will be the most helpful? Should there be laws that regulate features like, hey, you're 13 years old and you're using social media. You can't use autoplay. I mean, it would be great if we could trust our lawmakers to enact laws that make us feel safe and protected on social media and on the internet. But in reality, it looks a lot like this.
Will you commit to ending Finsta?
Senator, again, let me explain. We don't actually do Finsta. What Finsta refers to is young people setting up accounts where they may want to have more privacy. You refer to it as privacy from their parents. What in my interaction with teens, what I found is that they sometimes like to have an account where they can interact just with a smaller group of friends.
Well, Finsta is one of your.
We've actually.
Finsta is one of your products or services. We're not talking here about Google or Apple.
And lastly, there's no real way to know or predict how technology will be used or how it'll impact us. We don't even totally understand how it's affecting us in the present. You think the people who made plastic bags were like, hey, we are going to destroy the planet? No, they were probably like, look at this cheap, lightweight option to transport things. But the thing is, at this point, tech companies know that designing apps to be as addictive as possible is negatively impacting us. What they don't know is how to survive as a business without doing so, which is why some things gotta change. What do y'all think? Knowing what you know now, how do you protect your well-being even when you use technologies that can make it worse? Oh, and I want to shout out our partners at Common Sense Education and the Center for Digital Thriving. They helped us produce this episode, and be sure to check out their YouTube channel and subscribe. As always, I'm your host, Miles Best. Peace out.
That series is called Above the Noise. If you look at them on YouTube, or you can click on the link there in our slides, you'll find incredible resources like that one. And to go back to what Ashley said earlier, that's a wonderful opportunity for co-viewing with your kids. Watch it together and talk about what he shares. And he doesn't say it directly, so I will. Finsta is not a product of Instagram. What he's saying there is that the individual from, I believe it's the Senate or the House of Representatives, doesn't himself understand what Finsta is. So when he is accusing the Instagram executive of using this bad product, he's not asking the right question. So Miles's point is we need better informed legislators and people who are making decisions with more information.
Are you ready, Miles?
Next video asks the question, why is it so important for kids to feel connected? It's one of a series called Teen Voices that Common Sense Education has produced, and there are about 15 of them where they interview real kids and talk to them about their experience with tech. One of the things that we have found incredibly powerful is to move away from a conversation with your own child about their behavior and turn both of your attention to the behavior of other kids and other students, so that you're not having such a personal conversation about choices your kid is making, but instead talking about what the pressures are, what the pressures are, or what the experiences are like of many teenagers. So in this particular example, the students are going to talk about this pressure to stay connected. It's another great video for co-viewing, and you'll notice that there are questions raised about media habits that the teens are focusing on, that they're concerned about. They're discussing specific features that hooked them, some of those addictive design elements that I mentioned, and then asking you as a viewer to consider, do you think that what these students are describing is something that adds value to their lives? And if not, why not? Again, having that conversation with your own kid seems like an accusation, right? Do you really feel like this is helping you? And don't you see what's happening? Is much more difficult for a kid to hear than what do you notice about how they felt about their experience with social media?
I check my phone a lot. More than I can count. I check it usually when I wake up in the morning. Before school, on the bus ride to school. During school. A couple times each class. At lunch. Probably check it at break. After school. Walking home. While I'm doing homework. I'm constantly checking my phone until I go to bed.
For me personally, the positives of social media are the biggest probably that I feel connected. It's a way for me to talk to my friends at all times. When I don't have it, it really feels like I'm on another planet.
I don't really wish for the days when I didn't have my phone because it gives me so much like stuff that I like cherish.
I think I really enjoy social media when I am discussing issues with like-minded people or talking about things I'm very passionate about.
I like to make artwork and write, and so sometimes I'll use that as a platform to display my art.
It's fun. I like posting, I like editing pictures. Like, it's just fun to be able to talk to my friends all the time.
I never really feel depressed or anything like that, just because there's always somebody to talk to and always somebody that's there for you. That's kind of a good thing about social media.
It has definitely created a pressure for people to like keep on doing it, and I know that it's basically to keep them on the app.
The autoplay kind of helps me binge watch because, like, if I don't get to the remote and click back, then it's just going to start playing. It is hard to keep track of the episodes and hours when you're binge watching. I think that is definitely part of it.
I only have to wait 3 seconds to see what happens next, so.
I watched about 10 to 12 episodes in a day one time when I stayed home from school, and I finished the first season in one day. I think I've done that twice.
There's been times where I've planned on just watching like one video, but then I've kept watching more because they're recommended, and then it just keeps going, and all of a sudden a ton of time has passed.
You know, sometimes when I'm really into the show, but I have something else I need to do, it's very hard to decide if I should click out or not. But it starts playing the next episode, I'm like, oh, it won't hurt, just one more. You find yourself like 2 hours later and you're still watching it and you have homework to get done.
I would say that I'm definitely hooked on my phone, very dependent on it is the word I would use. I feel that I'm very aware of this and I'm not very happy about it.
Sometimes I wish that social media didn't have as much of an impact on my life.
I'll work, and then every once in a while I'll be like, okay, I'll take a break, and then I'll go back and check again, and then I'll check for too long, and then I waste a bunch of time that way.
It really makes you feel less whole when you realize you're putting so much energy into something that's on a little box in your hand.
It's something new, it's always exciting, it keeps your attention, and that constant turnover of adding new things definitely contributes to the amount of time people spend on it.
My family, one of the things we found really helpful is to name some of those behaviors, and we sort of joke about them, but I'll give you the examples we use, and it may inspire some similar ones for you. So we call what the young man described about just waiting for 3 seconds, and if you don't grab the remote, it starts. We call the Netflix dive, meaning you have to dive for the remote to stop the video before the next one plays. So coming up with a term like that in your house and making sure you have the tools you need to not have it continue playing. As Miles said in the previous video, that original design element did not exist. There was no such thing as autoplay. You always selected when to play the next video. For those of you that are not aware of it, you can change that setting in YouTube such that the next video does not play automatically, and in most streaming platforms you can do the same thing, but of course the default is to continue to play. Another term you may find useful to talk about is rapid task switching, and it has to do with the idea that people think they're multitasking, where they're looking at one thing, watching a video in the background while they're doing something else. All the cognitive research we have tells us that actually what we're doing is switching back and forth between the tasks at a rapid pace. And there's something that's referred to as the cost of this, or the sort of the penalty is another term that's used, that instead of being able to multitask and successfully go between them, what you're actually doing is decreasing your ability to do either one and spending additional time trying to do the switching. So that penalty or the cost is another great term to share with kids and talk to them about. I'm constantly amazed by how young you can start these conversations. Ashley's worked with younger students than I did, but really astounding how quickly they begin to be able to engage in pretty deep conversations about the negative impacts that tech is having on them, the ways in which they can make different choices that allow tech to support them, and really thinking with them in a very surprisingly mature way about how they can begin to modify their own behavior. And if at the base level, become aware of what impact tech is having on them. So I'll wrap up with just a couple of things to think about, ways that you might talk to your own kids about supporting your digital well-being, talking with them about the physical realm, time spent outside or in nature, making sure they're getting enough sleep and enough exercise, thinking about social interactions, things like deep, meaningful conversations or supporting a friend or classmate, and thinking about psychological flow. That term refers to the idea of your ability to have continuous thought and pleasurable experiences as you're navigating the psychological spaces. So, for example, making sure you do something that is intentionally fun or relaxing away from technology, or doing something creative where you're utilizing a skill set that otherwise may not be called upon. That might involve technology. My son is an artist who loves to use digital design tools, but it is a very interactive, creative process, very different from just consuming that technology. And taking us back to what Ashley said at the beginning about the difference between tech use and quality tech use, or media versus quality media. There really is a significant difference, and it's a lot more constructive and helpful to talk about that distinction than it is to sort of vilify one category or the other.
So we're going to finish up with how do we bring this home? And for those of you who are watching the recording, we will have lots of links that are available to you from this section. So we just wanted to start by highlighting some of these values. So as you are making your family media plans or you are making your ideal technology meal, there's different values to think about for your family. I'm not going to read every single one. I'm just going to click through right now. But your family needs to figure out the values that are most important. And again, this is a great spot to start having those conversations about what is important to us as a family, and how we show and practice and do the values that are important to us. And then what values inspire technology use, and what values are something that happen quite often without technology use. Like, for example, physical health does not have a technology requirement. But a lot of us also do our physical health with music. So it might have an aspect of it for your family. Following that, we have a sheet where it has all the different letters of meal. This comes from Common Sense Media. Again, their link is down here at the bottom, commonsensemedia.org. And this has just the different definitions of meal, and then a spot where you can work on 3 of those things. So goal setting that you can set as a family, like, oh, we notice we need to limit our screen time, or, oh, we want to adjust from passive to interactive. You guys can set some goals as families here. Earlier, Jonathan had talked about family technology planners. Common Sense has 3 different age groups. We have 2 on screen, but they do have one for younger than 8. And so I have seen families who use just one no matter the age of their kids, but I've also seen families who have a technology planner for each child at an age appropriate level. So if I have a 5-year-old student, I might use the younger than 8 family tech planner, which is a lot simpler language and questions to talk about with your child. And then if I also have a 13-year-old, I might use the highest level here on screen, where it's more detailed. It requires a deeper level of thinking and more choices to talk about as a family. And these family planners can grow as your family grows. You can always come back and make changes. Like, we realize this part doesn't work for our family anymore now that my child has started sports. And maybe as families grow and change, the family planner needs to grow and change as well. On the left-hand side, we have those media lists we had talked about very early on, the parenting tips. And this tinyurl.com link will get you to the Parent Hub very quickly. We have some discussion questions for you to use at home with your family. So things for you to start thinking about and reflecting on your practices, that model piece of what am I already doing and what could I incorporate next, as well as some discussion questions for when you're using technology together. So talking with your child about, like, how does watching this show make you feel? What do you think is going to happen next? What's your favorite part of this? So easy ones that you don't have to come up with on your own on the spot. They're already done for you, which allows us to practice and figure out what questions we really like asking and talking about as a family. And then our last one are some resources that are outside of Common Sense Media, some different articles. I do want to highlight your Portland Public Schools digital citizenship page has an amazing amount of tools that have been curated for your families at Portland, and it's a great tool and a great resource. And then Jonathan and I, have found some different articles to help if you're concerned about, like, video games or shifting off screens. Like Jonathan had talked about, bedtime can always be a challenge, especially if we were on technology right before. How can we make adjustments to our family plan so that's not as difficult anymore? And then we have a big thank you from us.
We really appreciate your time this evening and look forward to our next opportunity to share more thoughts about this with you. As Ashley said, please give yourself as much grace as you can. There are no right answers here or any easy solutions. And her point about iterating and making better choices each time that you can is really critical. It is so easy to beat ourselves up and say, I'm doing it all wrong as a parent, and I don't know what to do here. I think recognizing that you have peers who are in a very similar situation every day at home, and recognizing that the cards are really stacked against you. That is, you and your kids need to pretty aggressively fight back against some of these design issues and some of these intentional misuses of your time and well-being, and your children's as well. I think that can be really empowering, and for kids as well, to say, are you comfortable with this happening to you? No. Okay, then what are we going to do about it? And that kind of collaboration, the family tech plans provide a really great place to start with that, and to help you find other resources. You'll find that Common Sense Media's family resources are really nicely intertwined. So you'll go from one resource to another as you meet various needs or address various needs for your family. So we hope those are helpful, and give yourself a good deal of time to interact with them, because they really are remarkably well designed and very, very valuable. Thank you so much, and have a great evening.
Hey, thank you so much, Jonathan and Ashley.